Is that going to block you? Okay, so today we're looking at the third one. So like I said, the first one came exactly from the center. The second one came from on the circle. This one's going to be inside the circle, but not necessarily center. There's no specific name for this one, so we're just going to go directly to drawing a circle. So draw yourself a circle. And then what I want you to do is you're going to draw an X inside the circle, but don't make it go exactly through the center. So I'm going to make it look kind of like this. And I'm going to go arc, angle, arc. Everybody should be writing this down. Now, like I was saying earlier, whatever these arcs are, if I add them together, they're going to equal the same thing as these two angles added together. But if I want to just find one angle, I can add the arcs together. So arc plus arc divide by 2, then I get just one of the angles. That's my 7. None of these formulas are hard. The only tricky thing is each day is like, okay, this is pretty easy, this is pretty easy, this is pretty easy. And then we get 4 different formulas, and then you get a graded worksheet, and you're like, oh, what formula do I use? So you kind of have to remember what formula you use in what circumstance. So this one, this is if the vertex is inside the circle. Inside the circle. It crosses somewhere inside. Got that X in the middle. That's what we're focusing on today. So make sure you get that written down. And let's go ahead and take a look at the problems. So let's see a couple people writing. So 1 and 2. So number 1 here. We know arc plus arc divide by 2 equals angle. So we've got everything kind of lined up here. And you do want to make sure everything's lined up. So I've got a 160, I have an X, I've got a 60. So my 60 and my 160, those are my arcs. So arc plus arc divide by 2 equals, angle is what I'm trying to find this time. So that's the X. That's my 7. Now this is the easiest setup because X is already by itself. So I just got to do the math. So I'm going to add the 60 and the 160, I get 220. So 220 divide by 2, 110. So therefore my angle right here is 110. And if you look, 160 plus 60 is 220. My angles inside here would both be 110. So 110 plus 110 is also 220. So these add up to 220, these add up to 220. That's kind of the key to these problems. So number 2, which ones are the arcs? The 63 and the question mark. So I'm going to stick an X there. So X plus 63 divide by 2 equals my angle, and this time I know my angle, 106. Well, now this one takes a little bit more algebra. I probably wouldn't divide those by 2 because they're not going to divide by 2 easily. So my suggestion is to get rid of the 2, I would multiply both sides by 2. So that way the 2's cancel, and I get X plus 63 equals 212. Then I can subtract the 63. So 212 subtract 63, 149. So x equals 149. So this arc here is 149. And again, if you notice, 149 plus 63 is 212. 106 plus 106 is 212. So these two add up to the same thing as these two add up to. These two always have to be the same number because they're always vertical angles. So see a couple people right. And we need more time? Okay. Next two. 3 and 4. What are my arcs? The question mark and the 210. So x plus 210 divide by 2 equals my angle, which is 130. It's always the same formula. Arc plus arc divided by 2 equals angle. Arc plus arc divided by 2 equals angle. It's not changing. Multiply x plus 210 equals 260. Now I can subtract the 210. X equals 50. So therefore, that's my arc. Number 4, what are my arcs?
X and 83.
X and the 83. So x plus 83 divided by 2 equals 99. And notice they always just kind of line up here. Everything's in a row. 210, 130, x, which turned into 50, 83, 99, x. They all line up. Multiply by the 2. So x plus 83 equals 198. Subtract the 83. And I get 115. So this guy's 115. Now, like I said, there's always a couple of more equation ones, which are the next two. So you'll see a couple of people writing these, then we'll look at the next two, which are the equations. So number 5. Just because it has an equation isn't going to make a difference. Now this 6x minus 6, it got kind of pulled out a little bit, but it's actually the angle. It goes in there. So I've got my arcs. Here are my two arcs. 4x plus 11 plus my other arc, 65, divide by 2 equals angle 6x minus 6. That's my 7. There at the top of the fraction, I can go ahead and combine my 11 and 65. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. 4x plus, that would add to give me 76. I'm also going to multiply by 2 to get the 2 over here. So I get 12x minus 12. So I kind of did 2 steps at once. I combine those numbers at top and I move the 2. Now that looks a lot like one of those equations I gave you on that quizzies. Well, I gave you the quizzies. So I wanted to kind of see where we stood on that. Be really careful when you're solving these. I always move the x first. And I usually move the smallest one first. So the smallest one is the 4. So I would move the 4. Subtract 4 from both sides. Subtract the 4x. So 76, 8x minus 12. Now what I think some of you are doing is you're not making sure you're going different directions. So I sent the x to the right. So my number, the negative 12, has to go to the left. It's got to go different directions. So now I can add 12. And I get 88 equals 8x. Now I can just divide by 8 and I get 11. So x equals 11. If you would have set everything to one side and just kind of threw the equal sign back in there, you would have gotten a negative 11. So just be really careful to make sure that when you're solving the equations, variables go one way, numbers go the other. Be really careful. So that was number 5. Now one more that I'm going to do with you, and then the back is what you're going to work on. Any questions on number 5 before I slide it? Number 6. Now number 6 is actually a little bit easier of an equation. It's still add the arcs. So add the arcs. So 23x minus 2 plus